Good morning, everyone. It is an early one for many people. So thank you so much for being part of today. Hopefully this is the second session you've jumped on this week with me. And if it is, then thank you so much. If it's the first time you've seen me this week as part of this series, then welcome also. You can catch up on the session that I presented on Tuesday. There's lots of little bits that you can take away. I'm sure it can be on the rewatch. So you may have already received that recording, but regardless of whether you've seen that or not, welcome. And you'll definitely get something out of today as a standalone session as well. It's great to see people shuffling in, and I'd love to know in the chat how you're feeling. I'm actually really energized today, which probably people who know me will be like, oh gosh, because I'm pretty energetic at the best of times. But I had a wonderful evening last night. Went to the Science and Technology Australia dinner at Parliament House and got to meet one of my favourite science communicators, Nate Byrne, who's the weather guy on ABC News Breakfast. And I totally dorked out meeting Nate. So there's something about when you get to meet someone that you admire and can kind of absorb some of their awesomeness. So I think that's travelled in to my day today, and I'm feeling, yes, very energetic. I would love to know if that's you, or if you're not so energetic today, that is also okay. There's a lot going on in the world, and so it is not always, yeah, the place to be feeling good. So I appreciate that as well. If you don't know me, my name's Jo. I am the one of the founders of Good for the Hood. I'm a sustainability communicator, an educator, and a speaker. And I have been working in this space for the last 7 years professionally. Before that, I've been, like so many of you, a volunteer, one of those people in the community who turned up to all the things and did all the things. Yeah, it's something I've been very passionate about for some time. I would like to acknowledge that wherever you are on Aboriginal land, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm coming to you today from Canberra, from the land of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples, and I would like to, to pay my respects to them, and welcome and acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the call today. As I mentioned, if you didn't catch our session on Tuesday, please do. There's lots of talk about branding and thought leadership and how you can shift your mindset about, feeling like that person that has something to contribute in this space, even though maybe you don't feel like the smartest person in the room. It was really fascinating last night, and a dinner full of people who are experts in their field. And I mean legitimate, amazing professors. All of them said, oh yeah, but I'm only an expert in the particular type of nanoparticle technology, and I don't do this part, and I don't know anything like so and so. Even in a space full of absolute experts, we have this ability to minimize what we can actually contribute to the world, which is great. And it's really important that we recognize what our limitations and our scope is. But also, I find it really fascinating that we then sometimes think that that means that we don't have a voice or shouldn't have a voice when it comes to some of the big issues that are affecting not only ourselves, our families, but our communities. And when you're dealing with massive, messy, wicked problems, you need multiple, millions and millions of voices working on different elements of different problems. And that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that people feel they have the skills and the competence and confidence to be a sustainability messenger and a communicator, because we need you. This is the decisive decade for action when it comes to climate. We know that plastic proliferation is also at a pivotal period in its potential future, with global treaties and that discussion taking front stage as well. If we don't have lots of voices and lots of people doing that, then we really will rely on other people to take action, which is important when it comes to government and industry. But we also need people who can show others how to do change. I was at a session yesterday at the Climate Integrity Summit, which was also on, it's a big day. And one of the speakers said that we need people to show people how to do these things. Like, it's okay to say we all need to electrify our homes. What does that actually mean? And if you've got someone who's done it, then they're the perfect person to talk them through the process. So you don't necessarily have to be an electrical engineer or, someone who's dealing with deep particle science to explain things. Maybe you just have some lived experience, and that can be really powerful too. Today, thank you, Anna, and good morning, Shelley. And we don't have anyone else let us. I want to know where you're from this morning. It's a quiet crew, so don't be too quiet, because then I'll feel like I've lost you. Let me know where you're coming from today. We got Carolyn and Eva and Marty, Michelle, Shelley, Sophie, another Michelle. There's a few more coming in. Thank you so much for joining. Please let us know where you're coming in today. We've had a lot of people rewatching as well and sending me, and I know that because they've been sending me messages on LinkedIn, which was one of the tasks the other day, wasn't it? So we're going to get started. Some of this will be ever so slightly reminiscent of what we talked about the other day, but then we're going to get stuck into the conversation about money, about finances, and it's a really tricky one for people in this space. And I just wanted to retouch you. People who join me on Tuesday will have seen this image. I added a new photo. I don't know if you can tell which one. Might be the one with the new haircut. So I had some photos done last week. One of the things you have to get really comfortable with when you're putting yourself forward as a speaker or a presenter or a facilitator is you have to get comfortable taking photos of yourself so that you can show people who you are. And that in itself is terrifying for a lot of people. And I have found that incredibly awkward. I was one of those people who've never had good postural awareness or body awareness, and I was terrible at dancing. I'm very uncoordinated. And so I find the act of putting myself into positions that don't look ridiculous really hard. I've had to learn, what looks silly, and I can show you the photos that didn't go so well. I'm like, oh, I look ridiculous. But I wanted to share this photo because for the first time last week, I saw a photo of myself that is the woman that I feel like I can be. Now, I know that sounds a little bit bizarre, but it has been the most tremendously large journey for me for confidence to recognize that, here I am, this is me, this is my authentic self, and I actually also have something to bring to the table. And it's taken me 7 bloody years to do that and get really confident in my own skin. And I was starting to think about, I'm looking at all the photos there. It's not to say I haven't had confidence all the way along, but I was trying to look at those different points of what has changed so significantly for me in that period, apart from just having better photographs, is genuinely the more times I've shown up and had to put myself into uncomfortable situations, like speaking to the green dot on the computer, I think, ridiculous amount of times a week, or like turning up an event and speaking up, or like even just raising my hand at events and asking questions, which I might think are not particularly good questions. Every time I've done that, it's given me a greater sense of confidence. And speaking has absolutely given me the confidence and a little bit more grit, I guess. I've just kind of got a little bit better and a bit more resilient at dealing with hard stuff. Obviously, that comes with age sometimes, but I also see a lot of people minimize themselves as they get older because, I'm this and that, and no one wants to hear from me. So I don't know if you can see yourself in a similar sort of trajectory. I'd love to know if you've had those moments. Thank you, Sophie. But I think there's something about the act of going, this is me. I actually have something really important to contribute. And, you've organized me to be here. Awesome. There's an absolute, almost a validation, even if it's external to start. So I wanted to share that because, they're nice photos too. I'm even wearing the same earrings that I had on last week. But yeah, it's definitely been powerful. And as the thing that has changed for me in that time is my ability to say, I've got a service. This is what it costs. Have me there. And as soon as I felt the confidence to do that, that's definitely improved my ability to do it more and more and to do it better and better. If you can't tell, my background is in health science. I did an applied science degree with honours at the University of Queensland. I did not train in sustainability communications. Just this morning, however, I did look up a master's in science communication from ANU, because that's what Nate Byrne did. And I was looking at what that would involve. I'm fascinated with what it takes to be a good communicator. And I don't believe that it is beyond the realms of most people. Even if you have really, different, or I guess, if you feel limited by some of your capabilities, communication can look like all sorts of different things. And one of the MCs last night was a Nobel laureate. And they were not, I think I'm fair to say, probably the most comfortable communicator. But the respect in the room for that person because of who they were, and the fact that they held that room, was authentic for them. So even if you don't feel like the most energetic, extroverted person, or if you even think that you have something at this point in your time, in your, life or career to contribute, it's not something that is beyond the realms of learning. And I think I'm living proof of that. It's a pretty exciting place to be if it's something that is adding value to your life and not just your the mission that you're on to solve. So I wanted to start in talking about what sustainability communication could look like, because a lot of people go, oh, you want me to start a business? I'm not starting a business. Sustainability communication is obviously a skill and a subset of that you bring to all sorts of different roles. They can be paid roles, they can be unpaid roles. It's something that you do as part of, or already probably as part of your everyday life if you're in this space or interested in this space. It is definitely the act of explaining some of the science and some of the problems, and also understanding some of the solutions. So that can absolutely be part of a salaried role. We have people joining our sessions who work work for councils in waste education, sustainability education of roles. That's their full-time job, to make sure that those messages get through to their communities. We have people who work in large corporates who have a similar role as within their either as part of their job description, or as a side kind of component of what they do. Maybe they're the part of the HR team and sustainability is part of that. Maybe they're part of an ESG team. It's part of their job and they're paid to do that. So that's one person, a salaried role within an organization where it's part of your job description to complete some kind of sustainability communication. For many people, it's sort of something that becomes extra. So it's not really what part of my job. Maybe I work, in real estate, but I'm really passionate about this. So then there's this situation of, how does that fit in? If it's not in my job description, but something I'm really passionate about, do I bring it into my current job, or does it have to be outside my job? And does it have to be, and what does that look like? So the first thing I would say is that I believe that we need to bring, messages and solutions for climate and big problems into every space. There's no scenario or situation in our lives that won't be impacted by climate change. So therefore, if you are a real estate agent, then you should be talking about climate change, just like every other job. But I recognize that if you don't have control of that, and it needs to be outside your salaried job, or if you're retired and you don't have a job, then what could that be? So for a lot of people, it starts as either a volunteering role. They step into some kind of volunteering position with an organization. Maybe they just join, I've got people who've been in these groups, part of Parents for Climate, part of, Renew groups. We've got people who have joined net zero communities or waste, waste reduction groups. You might have found, OzHarvest or some other big not-for-profits that you've joined and you like to be part of. And that gives you an opportunity to dip your toe in the water and explore what that can look like. That might mean that you get to start doing some maybe unpaid communication about the work that you're doing, about the mission of the organization you're affiliated with. So it can look like that. It can also be something that once you've done some of these things for a while, people start sort of saying, oh, oh, you know lots about food waste. Could you come to my childcare centre and talk to my staff? And all of a sudden there's this situation where people go, hang on, what does that look like? And to be honest, that's exactly what started happening for for me, and that's why Good for the Hood started. Is I had been doing a whole bunch of unpaid work. A whole bunch of people like to use the word free. I never use the word free. Unpaid. It was not free. There was a cost. It was my cost that I wore, but it was unpaid. So I was doing a lot of unpaid work in the community, really satisfying stuff. And then people would say, can you come and talk to our community? And I had a paid job and I had young family, and I had to sort of start going, oh, okay, yeah, I can come on Tuesday, but I'll have to get a babysitter and I'll have to, and I realized that I was starting to absorb the costs of that effort. It wasn't that I expected to be paid, but there was expenses, travel, time, petrol, the babysitter, my mental space, there was a lot of costs that were being created, and I was very happy to do the work. But at some point people were saying, well, how much do you charge for that? And I was, what do you mean? And so there's a moment where people actually want to pay you. They expect to pay you. And so what does that look like? For many, that's when sort of a side hustle, which is really just another name for a small paid role, or a startup, which is, I think this distinction is a side hustle is probably something that you start with the intent that it probably will always remain just something you do extra. It's not going to be you still want to stay in your career, you still want to stay in that space, or you still want to be retired, you don't want to start a business, but it is there and it will be something you give some energy to. A startup, in my opinion, is where you have entered into a space where you see a future and you want that to be what you do all the time, and you really want that business or that venture to grow. And so it can start as a side hustle, and for many people it has to, because you still need to pay the bills, but it can move into that. I just want to mention two other things. One is that you may get sort of roles for a period where someone wants you to come in and it's a contracted role as well. So it's slightly different to a salaried role. It might be, just for a short period of time where someone wants you to come and do some work as part of a grant funding. Or you might be part of an organization and they want to make a donation to that organization. It won't go to you, but you know that the organization will benefit. So that's what I mean by contribution based. So there are other variations of that, but that's what I've seen from my own experience and from the people I've worked with, where sustainability communication has some sort of payment, or in the case of being unpaid, no payment. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What does payment look like? What should it look like? How do you get it? And should you get it? And is it even possible? A lot of people are like, well, no one's going to pay me for that. So we're going to have that conversation today. Thanks, Michelle. So I'd like to know, firstly, whether you're doing any work where you would consider any of these areas apply to you. Do you do unpaid work? Are you working with an organization and they get paid, whereas you're still a volunteer, but you know that there is payment going to them? Do you have a job which has this sort of work as part of it and you get paid each week because it's your job and it's part of your job description? Is it something you've been dabbling in, haven't yet got paid for, or have been paid for, but just a little bit? Have you got your own startup business? What applies for you? Or are you none of the above and just sort of going, I'm just really interested in knowing what's possible? And while you put that in the chat, I'm going to have a drink of water. We had a couple of people join in that moment. Welcome. As Anna's mentioned, make sure that in the chat button it says everyone, because I won't see your messages unless, well, not everyone won't see your messages if it says just to host and panelists or individuals. All right, how are we going? Straddling worlds. I love it, Michelle. Salary role 3 days a week. startup nutrition business, and looking to expand. Beautiful. Excellent. So you know this space really well. Sophie, great to hear from you too. It's been great hearing about your new venture as well. Moving into the startup space, a side hustle and startup. Yeah, absolutely. Just at the beginning. I love it. It's wonderful to see. I think you're more than at the beginning, but anyway, that's just great, Marty. Have your own startup business, which is starting out as a side hustle. Fantastic. Hoping for greater growth. Selective about the unpaid versus the paid. Good. Great. Good to hear. Eva, we've got unpaid work, but the organizations are not for profit, don't get paid either. And you do a lot, Eva. Let's be honest. You are very very active and very effective, I would say too. But we're going to share our organizations in a second so we can all give each other a little bit of love, because none of this is easy. I don't know anyone who would say, I'm doing it. It's not to say you don't enjoy it, but it's so easy. I've never heard anyone say that. And if anyone says that, I actually question whether they are just, I don't know, a different kind of person to me, because I don't think any of this is easy. And as you said, startup, unpaid contracts. So that's Shelley, absolutely. So all of the above. Anna, yeah, combination of voluntary, paid, and also voluntary. 2 voluntaries, many voluntaries. Just starting out, wonderful. Volunteer, Michelle, lots of projects. Just registered a business name. Woohoo, well done. Leaving your old business after 23 years. That is phenomenal. Okay. Wow. Well, congratulations to all of you, because you're all doing or about to do a lot of kind of scary things, exciting, but also scary. And I know that feeling so well. And I still have moments where I go, how did I do that? Like, it does feel like it's a big leap. So it takes some wonderful trust and sort of ability to step into that space. Not to say, I always say to people, you can always go and get something else, right? Like, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out, but I can understand that it's a big leap and we all want it to work so desperately too. So this is a really good time for you to give each other a bit of love. If you've got Instagram, I find Instagram's the easiest, which is why I've put it up there. This is our Instagram page. If you jump on and if you don't already, if you do already, follow us, send us a message and just say, hi, Jo, I'm on your session. And we're going to do a bit of a shout out for you today with our small but mighty group of followers. So please, if you don't already follow us, follow the QR code, or just go to Good for the Hood, at Good for the Hood on Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, that's fine. If it's on Facebook, you can do the same handle, Good for the Hood, on there. Or if you don't have any of those yet, that's fine. If you've only got your personal page, don't worry, I won't share that with the world, but unless you want me to. But yes, we would love, and also pop it in the chat. Oh, Michelle, nervous as anything. That's okay. It's a good sign. Also, let's pop out, if you do have Instagram or Facebook, if you can pop a link to your new organization, business, or anyone that you think is worthy of following that you do some work with. It would be really wonderful that we could all give each other a bit of love and a bit of a follow and a like and some rousing applause virtually. Yeah, please feel free to pop that in the chat and we'll make sure that we can share some of that love across, because it is daunting and scary and worrying and also very exciting. So yes, pop those in the chat. We'll make sure that we can stay in touch there. If you haven't already sent me a message through LinkedIn. It was really beautiful actually to receive so many messages on Tuesday, but you can also reach out there and connect as well. All right. Beautiful. Anna's on it. Okay, so going to jump into some questions. These are all questions I have been asked by people I've coached or worked with, and Some of them will surprise you, some of them won't. And hopefully some of them are very, very familiar. So obviously feel free as we go along to ask follow-up questions, additional questions in the chat, comments. If it's different for you, it will really help strengthen the conversation. I am sharing, I guess, a mixture of the experiences I've seen, some pitfalls that I've seen people get into, and also some cold hard facts about the situation. So let's get started. Oh, so great to see all these links popping in. So do I really need to start a business? The question is, do you want to be paid for the work that you're doing? And if you want to be paid, then there are some tax implications to declaring income. Obviously, in Australia, you are not allowed to take money without paying tax. So if you're going to start taking money for a service that you provide, then you need to think about what the implications of that are. So that may not mean that you have to start a full proprietary limited business. It may not mean that you have to, it might mean that you need to be a sole trader. You may need to get some advice. The best place to go is the ATO website, and you need to report income. So if you're starting getting paid, you need to have a way that can be paid to you and a way of declaring that. So it doesn't necessarily mean you will have to pay tax under a certain threshold, but if you're already earning a salary and you're starting to get more money on the side, then obviously there are implications. So you don't necessarily have to start a business, but if you are wanting to be paid, then potentially will be some implications. So a lot of people don't really want to do it, but it has to happen on one way or another because someone wants to pay you some money. So it's just worth thinking about what your situation is. If there's already a business structure that you can work with, then that's obviously something that might make it work. You know, if your partner's got a business and they can be paid into that, who knows? But it's worth getting some advice. Start with the ATO, get some business advice. There's a lot of even through Service New South Wales, there's a lot of the business concierge and other services that you can get some, say, hey, this is my situation. And then it might mean that you need some a bit more specific business advice as well from an advisor. But make sure that you do the right thing. It's important to start out well, and you don't want to get yourself into trouble because you thought you were doing the right thing. So absolutely, we don't all have to decide we want to start a business, but if you want to start accepting money, then you need to understand that there are rules around that. You needed to start a business Instagram on it today. Oh, business Instagram. All right. I was like, okay, awesome. Yes, do that, Michelle. It's something we have on our list, and then we realize actually it's not that hard to do. You just got to find a handle that works for you, and then set that up and link it to your account, and then at least it's there, and you can start that process. I put it off for a long time for my speaker page, but eventually, yes, it comes to that point where you do it. Excellent. But you've got a website, so well done. Excellent. All right. So if you don't want to start a business and you're working with in your case, Eva, got some not-for-profits you're working with that have a structure, or you're working with an association, and you're going out and doing a lot of work with them or on their behalf, and you're having conversations with your colleagues, with the board, whoever it is, and saying, look, we're doing a lot of speaking work or going out to a lot of events. And they're sort of saying, well, yeah, no, but we don't want to charge for that because we're not for profit or we're an association. But a lot of people say, well, should we really be charging a fee for what we do? Now, it's entirely up to the organisation, obviously. What I would say is that there are organisations who would feel better about having you there if they knew that you were receiving some sort of reimbursement or payment. So I think there's a sense sometimes that, and I feel this way, I would prefer to have someone come and do some stuff with me in a paid capacity than unpaid. And that seems weird because most people think, oh, free stuff, awesome. But I think as soon as you're in this space, and particularly when you know someone's doing work that is really important, you don't want to exploit them. You don't want to feel like, and you know that nothing is free, as I said, there's a cost. I know someone's paying for this. Someone's paid to get here. They've traveled. They've given me their time. None of that is free. It's just unpaid. And I am a big believer that if you're not at least giving some kind of contribution, then the longevity of that organization may be impacted. And if my mission is to get more people to talk, then I want to pay you because I want you to keep talking. So it's just worth having a conversation with the organization. If they've got a lot of grant funding and they're very well set up, and this is part of the mission of what they're wanting to do, then maybe they don't need to accept money. But maybe it's that they can accept a nominal fee for the opportunity. And that might just mean that you can get your petrol reimbursed, or you can, have a nice t-shirt that's with their, whatever it is, it might cover some of those additional fees. And it might also mean that the organization that's organizing you to come and speak may feel better about having you there. It might mean that they start to recognize the value of what you do. It's just worth thinking about. So if that's where you're also sitting, it's worth having that conversation. It also opens up doors for more opportunities potentially as well. So we'll talk about pricing and that stuff in a little bit, but it is worth having some different fee structures for different organizations, particularly as a not-for-profit or an association, so that you do free work for some organizations, you do low fee work for others, and then you do some higher fee work for certain other organizations, and you get to decide what sort of organizations they are. So that's worth thinking about as well. So I would be having the conversation. If it's never been talked about, it needs to be. Again, there's nothing wrong with doing unpaid work, but you need to also recognize that someone is paying somewhere along the line. And if it's impacting your overall mission and impact, then maybe you do need to start asking for a contribution to the organization in exchange for the wonderful speaking services or contribution that you've given. Some examples that I have of that recently, I did some work with for Mardi Gras Festival in Sydney, and we had a panel of people come, and we had one organization come, which was it's 2010, which is a Pride organization. They were paid a fee to their organization because they pay their staff already. And we also had a panelist come who's a sole trader, and they were paid a fee because they are an individual, that would have gone straight to them. So a contribution was made to the organization to come, and the contribution was made to a person who came as a sole trader. And they were happy, both of them were happy, but it worked slightly differently. So it can look like different things for different people, but I would prefer to pay people to come and be part of panels and events, because I just know on the other side that if I don't, it also means that you're building their capacity, and potentially in future, if there's another thing you want to go and ask them to be part of, they're much more willing to do that, because you can build some really great relationships there. I think if you're continually asking people to do stuff for free for you, eventually they're going to say no. So excellent. All right, great to see some people. I'm wondering if that's resonated for anyone yet, or if anyone's done this, if they've put in, had a payment go to an organization they're working with, even though they haven't necessarily seen it, they know that it's supporting the organization that they have been volunteering with. So what is the right price? And that's a great question. And guess what? It's a really complicated. And I want you to think about a handbag. This is a terrible example for me to use because I don't buy fancy handbags, but you can buy a handbag for $15, probably even cheaper in some places, and you can buy a handbag for $150,000, probably more, which is stupid, and I'm the first to say what, but they're both handbags. So when you say to someone, well, what's it worth, or how much did you buy it for? the right price comes down to what people's perception of the perceived value is. So what we will pay for depends on the quality of the item, the brand, where it was made, what it's made out of, how much it fits, what it looks like, how it makes us feel when we use it. And our perception of value and what the right price for something is incredibly subjective. It's a little less extreme as that in this sustainability speaking space, but there's a huge variety of price ranges. And if you ever go and look at keynote speakers can charge, as a starting point, a minimum of $4,000 if you're with a bureau, a speakers bureau. There are keynote speakers who are paid $1 million per appearance for speaking. So to say what's the right price for someone to come into an organization, it's quite diverse. In saying that, the clients who book you within those clientele and within the particular organizations, there will be a range for a budget which will feel appropriate based on your service. And when it comes to doing a 1-hour workshop, perhaps, or coming in and doing a panel session, or turning up to do a podcast or something, the price might be $0 because there are occasions where it's really the expectation is that you do come in and do this for free, or there might be a range of prices there that are appropriate based on the service. So it comes down to how long you're there for, how complex the presentation you are giving is in terms of how much has gone into creating the content, the images. Is it something that you've just sort of pulled together quickly, like my slides today? Or is it something that you've curated and worked on? Are you a graphic recorder who's made beautiful, intricate images? Do you provide a service where you actually speak and draw at the same time? Are you someone who does magic while they explain the things? So you can imagine, if it's just you coming in and talking about energy transition and electrification, and it's you and a couple of slides behind you, it's different to someone who comes in and shows, a very intricate experience, or goes into someone's workplace and shows them, how to do the technical work. So it comes down to how long you're there for, how intricate the information is, how many other people are kind of available. I mean, we know supply and demand. If there's lots of people out there doing this work, and if they can't, if they can't book you, are there lots of other people that they could get in? That has an impact as well. So I would say, if you are starting out and you're going, what is the right price for me to provide this service? The best thing you can do is start finding out who is doing an equivalent service and just do a bit of research. If you don't, it's likely that you will go either so high above or so much under what other people are paying that it'll backfire either way. Now, the wrong price can mean that people just will balk and go, whoa, that's ridiculous and quite laughable, versus they will think you are terrible. Because if you undercharge too much, people think you're bad or not very experienced or not particularly professional. It's weird because you think, well, I'm not those things. But if you charge too low, people will go, oh, yeah, I was going to get them, but they're only charging $200. It's different if it's a not-for-profit, because there is an expectation that, sure, that they have got a different model. But if you are if you had set up as a business, an organization, and you're undercharging, I actually think it can backfire. And I have one of my friends is a speaker, and he said that he has lost jobs because he knows he hasn't charged enough, because they've gone, oh yeah, this person, oh, he's a bit cheap, right? Yeah, no, we won't get him. We want someone who's really, really good, So it is a sense of, you've got to charge in that sort of ballpark. And the only way you're going to do that is by finding out what other people are charging. And that can be really hard because people don't generally tell you that. But also you can ask your client, what would you expect to pay for this sort of service? Or do you think my service is good value? This is what I charge. Is that about what you'd expect to, and I have asked this of my clients. I've said, you expect that this is about what you, and they've said, yeah, it's in the ballpark. Yeah. And if people are sort of comfortable with that, that can sometimes mean, oh, I can add $50 here, or I can, you can move it around a little bit. But if you know that the basic ballpark is right, then you can kind of hedge your bets a little bit. The other thing I would say is that you need to go and experience some of the other people who are doing this sort of work. So if you have got a particular service or that you're wanting to provide, go and attend other people's sessions. I don't think anyone's upset about, you coming in, and I would expect that there'd be people who provide similar services to what Good for the Hood do that turn up all the time. That's fine. I expect it. I go to other people's sessions all the time, not just to go, what are you doing? How much are you charging? But because I'm interested in learning, what are they doing that's different? Oh, okay, right. How do they add value in that area that we also consider what other add-ons you're providing? Are you providing, social media advertising? Are you bringing a crowd? Are you, do you provide a take-home kit that people can use? Do you provide the materials to do a workshop? Do you provide all of the paper, which is paper and pens and all the extra gear? Like, what is it that is part of your service? And make sure that you have them as inclusions when you're doing that. So people know that not only do you, when you booked, that you turn up on time and that you're reliable, the information's great and engaging, but also that you get all these other great things as well. And ask people, if people are if you're not closing those deals, then sort of say, look, we've got any feedback about the service or, what I'm offering, why have I not been successful in working with you today? You can definitely get that feedback. And if they say, look, we just don't have the money to contribute to that, it might still mean your price is right, but it might just mean that they're not quite the right customer or client for you as well. So it's not an exact science. And it's very hard for me to say, hey, Sophie, this is your session, how much do you need to charge? Well, because I'd need to know exactly what it is. So when I work with clients, I can get a really clear idea of, this is what you do, this is what you're providing, this is the topic. Okay, excellent. You're charging that amount? Okay, actually, I think you need to charge a little bit more because I know so-and-so and so-and-so are doing that very similarly. And but look, for a 1-hour counsel workshop, for example, I've seen people charge as little as $200 to as much as $1,500. I don't know if that helps at all, but that in that ballpark, and that's a big range for an hour's work. I've seen people say that it's exorbitant to pay $400 to come for a half an hour session, when I actually don't think being paid $400 to do an hour or half an hour session is a huge amount of money. So, everyone's perception is quite different. Even within a client, different departments of a organization may have different perceptions on what's good value too. So it's complicated, but you've got to ask some questions and start to get comfortable with it. If you've worked in an industry and you've kind of seen and worked with other people, and I have worked within councils and booked people for speaking, so I had a pretty good idea before I started. It's worth just doing that research because it will give you the confidence. And when someone says, oh, no, I can't do that, you're too expensive, it gives you the confidence to go, okay, thank you so much. And just know, actually, I'm not too expensive. I provide great value and I'm right in the sweet spot. They just weren't the right client for me. And you just kind of water for duck's back and you keep going, which is important because you will get people who say that. So if you don't know what other people are charging, please go out and do a bit of research. You can do it in ways that is not too intrusive, and I would encourage you to do that. Yeah, absolutely. At the top end, $15, you need a lot of volume. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that, Sophie. So yeah, awesome. Great question, Sophie. So how many times can we run sessions? So absolutely. You think about the difference. If you're going full time into a business and you're charging $1,500 for a 1-hour session, people go, that's amazing. And you're like, yeah, but how many sessions do I need to run a week for that to pay my bills? Because once you run a business, you know that $1,500 into the business isn't $1,500 straight into your pocket as your salary, or even, it's definitely not profit. So that revenue that you're generating is not just straight to your bank account necessarily. You've got expenses. So we're going to definitely talk about that, Sophie. There's a real perception that because we work in the environmental space, or that we work in the for-purpose or the not-for-profit, or you know, the good space, the place where we're trying to do good things for the world, that we should do it for free. And this is told to me all the time, that people are like, oh, everyone just expects that. And so I've had people inquire and they say, well, can you come in and do a talk about recycling? I'm like, absolutely. Here's our pricing, here's our service. And they go, oh, I just thought you came and did that for free. And I'd be like, well, it wouldn't be a very good business if I did that, would it? And they're like, oh, you're a business. I'm like, well, I'm what I would describe a for-purpose business, and I've been set up as a social enterprise from day one. But yeah, I still have to put money into the business to pay me and my staff, and pay for my computer and the service that, and it was like, and this was a multinational organization, and I just remember thinking, wow. For me, it really shifted my perception of them. I'm like, you are getting me in to do what you would consider part of your ESG. I would consider exploiting an organization to in the name of sustainability would be pretty socially unacceptable. So you need to stand firm with why. You don't even have to explain yourself. Yes, we have a fee. It is this fee. Make sure it's established up front. Don't come in and do work and then negotiate fees afterwards. You will get yourself into trouble there. But if you are being asked to do something, and it is okay to still do things for free, sometimes it is a good idea to do things for free, but just be aware that, yeah, I have a price. This is what it is. Take it or leave it. And people become used to recognizing that. And once they recognize that, then they'll come to you if you're appropriate and good value for them. It's a lot easier to establish that. It's sometimes really hard if you've been doing something for a while for free and then you decide to pay. So when is it good to do something for free? Again, very subjective. And I have done a lot of things for free over the years, as you probably all have. Now, what does free mean? Obviously, it's unpaid. There's no such thing as free. But unpaid appearances can mean, that I've gone and done media calls for organizations. So someone said, oh, we need someone to be the voice about this particular issue. Would you go on radio for us? I did lots of work with War and Waste on ABC and was working in collaboration with them for a paid component, but there was lots of extra stuff that was, so I was a panelist on the Q&A on ABC during War and Waste. Like, that was not a paid appearance. No one gets paid to go on Q&A. Some people are paid because they're part of an organization and are on the panel, and that would be part of their hours. But for me, it was unpaid. But that's a phenomenal opportunity to gain exposure, to be seen on, so it was a no-brainer. Of course I'll go on that. Of course I'll sit up there. Of course I'll, sit next to Craig and Ronnie Khan and Gail Sloan and all these people who I just admire and think are wonderful. So it's about, I guess, the opportunities that it enables for you. And sometimes you don't know whether that's going to be anything. There's sometimes a risk. I did 2 events last week for free, unpaid, because I recognize one's already converted into a very great opportunity, and I'm really glad I did it. The other one, I'm like, I probably shouldn't have done it. I've also done work at a significant reduction in price because it felt like the right thing to do. I wanted to help them. I liked them. So it can be a good idea when it sits well with you and when it's not sinking your business or your organization. If you are doing lots for free and you are struggling financially, it's pulling you away from getting really good other paid work. It's stressing you out. It's burning you out. It's taking up your energy and your time away from your family, and it's not, giving anything back. They're the signs that you're doing too much and you're giving too much away. And we all know if you give too much away for free, people won't then decide that you have enough value to be paid because, you've given all this stuff. I don't need you. You've given all these other things for me anyway. So, so again, it's hard to know. But I think, yeah, great. Just reading some of the great comments from Uncharitable. So yeah, it's really important to make that call and just have that confidence. And I get, in my opinion, there's room for both, but doing the paid work enables you to do the free work. So I'm a big believer in charging those clients that can pay more, so that I can do pro bono or low bono work when I want to. And that gives you the freedom to go, yeah, I will do that. I love you guys. I will, of course, I'll be a panelist and I'll come in and do that. Even though I know that maybe there's nothing at the end. So, you know, I think it's also, if you do free work, make sure you get lots of photos about you doing the work, because at least then you've got opportunity to share that you've been part of that. That's taken me a long time to get really good at, but I make sure that everything I do, I have photos of, and at least I've got something to share from it. And it's another opportunity to demonstrate and build your thought leadership and your brand. So it can be a good idea. There's some good questions coming in. This is my bugbear. How can we put a price on sustainability? Is it based on, oh, look, whether it's historical context, I think you would say the same in anyone in the community sector. You know, if you're working with, you know, any sort of problem that you're trying to solve for social good, people expect that maybe because your model is, yeah, it's one of contribution and I was going to say good Samaritanism, you know, that there's a sense that you would do that for free. But I just think we've just got to stand firm. And I think the best thing is that has been a lot of pathways really carved out for full purpose organizations. I've heard Ronnie Khan speak multiple times about the fact that she kind of wishes OzHarvest was set up as a for-purpose business with a sidearm and which is now done with the orange juice company. I think that's a for-purpose business, which then funnels money into the charity. Could be wrong, but that's my understanding of it. So she just said it's really hard running a not-for-profit, and I kind of wish I'd done it differently. She's been very open about that. But I think, you know, I think there is sometimes we have to set up our own expectation of what's reasonable. I'm going to plow through because I'm talking so much and I'm going to get to the good stuff. A lot of people say I'm not in that money, so it doesn't matter what I charge. Sure, until such time it's burning you out, it's eating up time with your family, it's pulling you away from more impactful work. Just remember, money equals impact. The more money you have, the more effort you can put into doing great work. So whilst you might not be interested in making money, as in having a profit and being able to buy luxury handbags, money is an enabler for great change. So if you make money with an organization, that means you can do more things. I've often said that I never wanted Good for the Hood to be a big business and do that. And people are like, but if you have more money and a bigger business, you can have more impact, which means you can change more people and really create. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's a really good point. So I think it's really important to recognize that it's not about you making money. If you care about impact and changing, you know, the big issues of the world, then money is a great lever. In fact, it's how we got into this, so we may as well, you know, use it for good. So sometimes it's not to say that you have to necessarily put but if there is an impact on the unpaid work that's really impairing your ability to do more, then money can be a really good way of making sure that you can keep doing the work that you are. A lot of people say, well, I'd prefer to be on the low side because that means I'll get the work because I'm the cheapest. As I've just said before, just because you're the cheapest doesn't mean that people think you're the best. And under a certain price, a lot of organizations aren't even comparing prices. So some people will say we want 3 quotes and we'll, you know, maybe that doesn't necessarily mean they'll pick the cheapest. I've lost jobs several times because I know that I was cheaper than someone else. And I wonder if that again made them think that I wasn't as good. So sure, if you want to be competitive and you want to be on the low side, fine, but don't think that it's going to get you more work because it's not actually the case. If people think you're too expensive, that just means that they don't see the value in having you, and people are sensitive to prices when they really think that just doesn't seem like it's worth it. Worth is about, you know, what they get for paying that money. So perceived value is really about comparing you with others or with something they've done before. It does come down a lot to your brand. who you are, what you do, what you're known for, who you've worked with before, what you've been able to show and change within an organization, whether you've been able to transform. So it might just be about bulking up your website or your one sheet with a bit more information that goes, you know what, I reckon they are worth it because they did this work with so-and-so and oh, they've got a really nice, I just feel comfortable about it. And it's about comfort as well. If they're getting you to come in and speak, they want to know that you're going to make them look good. No one wants to book someone who's unprofessional, who turns up late, who can't communicate well, who makes them look that it is clumsy, that, so if you are asking for a certain amount of money, you better hope that you're bringing the value too. And I also think that the more you start to charge, the more you step into the space of going, all right, I know I'm getting some good money from this. I'm going to do a bloody good job. And I'm going to spend a lot more time working on that. All right. Should I offer discounts and promotions? Absolutely. You can do anything to make you perceived value more obvious. This is what Sophie was sort of saying before. The more I work, the less. If you start doing a whole bunch of work and you feel like it's not really adding up to enough, then there's two things happening. You're either not charging enough per service or you're not getting enough through the door. And to getting the more volume comes down to a whole bunch of things. How many people you're reaching out to and doing, sales and pushing that through. How many people are you sort of saying, hey, this is my service? But, as I said, is that 50 a day? Is that 100 a day? Is that 2 a day? Is it 12 a month? How many people are you reaching out for and how many people are actually converting into someone who gets you to go and do that work? It's a numbers game. But also if you feel like you're getting lots and lots of work, but it still feels like actually I'm not converting enough money to keep this your price point may well be wrong. Or you might need to look at other ways of scaling the business, because speaking work is obviously done one-to-one or online. And that's why people start pulling together courses and other things and writing books and doing other things that can really help the base of what they're making as well. So I'm sure, Sophie, you'll be able to package it up in different ways and maybe, come up with various options and tiered options at different prices too. What if someone says you need to adjust your fees? Then, that's up to you. If they say we've only got $1,000 and you normally charge $1,200, then you can make that call. But if you think it's going to be more work than what you'd normally do for $1,200, then be very aware that if they've already cut a bit of money off, you're going to go in feeling a little duped anyway. And if they start asking for more and more and more, which can sometimes happen, oh, can we do this before the session? Can you change this? Oh, actually, if they move your date around and it starts to, you will start to resent it. So I think just be aware that sometimes there's a reason you charge what you charge. And, you have every right to say, actually, you know what, I can't do it for any less. Maybe next time, we can work together. Can I change your pricing? Absolutely. It's one of the great joys of it. And I would suggest that every year you should, particularly with inflation at the moment. And also as you become better at what you do, you should change your pricing too, because your clients will change. And if you don't, you probably will stay doing the same thing, which is fine. For many people, they're very happy. But if you want to grow and change and get bigger and better work, then that's probably something that you should consider. It might be a slightly different product though, or service that you provide, that you tweak or evolve. If they say they don't have budget for your services, that can mean two things. One, they don't have budget for your services. As in, if you've reached out to them and say, hey, I've got this great thing. They say, oh, that looks so good. I love that. We just don't have budget at the moment. But if they've reached out to you and said, can you come in and do this service, and you provide them a price, and they say, oh, thanks, but we just don't have budget for that. That's not that they don't have budget. That is that they don't see value in what enough value in what you're doing. So it might mean that they had a budget, but they don't feel comfortable with, they thought that you maybe were going to do it for this amount and you've come in with a slightly different amount. It might mean that they have the money there, but they don't feel comfortable with that exchange. So that might mean something, again, showing more value, or, moving into, sort of having a conversation. I often say, do you have a specific budget in mind for this? And if they say no, then I'll know. Of course they do. There's always there's always a ballpark, but it's also about what the value they're expecting me to bring. So if they balk at the cost, it might not mean that, you know, they had $5,000 and they're expecting you to be $2,000 because they just sort of where they position you. Or it might mean that they just haven't quite got enough value or comfort that you are worth, you know, the amount you've asked for. All right, I just wanted to share this quickly. Most people are in this space, even if it's a not-for-profit. You need to be aware of what your hourly rate is kind of worth. I think it's worthwhile doing up some data around, all right, if I want to, you know, on my side hustle, if I want to make a certain amount of money and I know that I can do X amount of hours, I need to have an hourly rate and a day rate just as a ballpark. So if someone says, can you come in and do a full day workshop, or can you come in and do an hour's, you know, chat or whatever, you should have sort of a few rates. So it might be that you have an hourly rate for different things, i.e. if someone wants me to come into their organization, because it's in person, I'll charge a bit more. If it's that they want me to create something for them as some materials, then that's a slightly different rate. If I'm traveling, then I'll have a travel rate, which is quite low, but it'll at least cover my petrol, because I'm not doing anything that adds value for them, but I do need to cover my travel. And then I have a corporate rate, which is obviously, you know, a different rate again, maybe, you know, quite a lot more, but my service is quite different. So it's worth knowing that you have a rate, so that, and that rate ideally should be that if you were to work that rate every day, you would earn the money that you want, or your organization would earn the money that they want, so that you could pay yourself the salary that you want. So in theory, it should mean that if you got enough of that work on a day-to-day basis, but for most people, it will also mean that it might have to be a bit higher, because you don't work every day when you're in the speaking space. You know, I might get 2 paid jobs a week some weeks, which means that has to cover myself and my staff and all the other expenses. So you can see that I'm not charging $150 for the speaking job, because I didn't work just, you know, 2 hours. I've worked an entire week that has to cover. So you just need to get comfortable with what it is that you're worth in your or what it is that you need to earn or want to earn in that space. You need to know what where that money is going to come in. So the different products that you have, different categories of services that you provide, how many of those are you expecting? Because that's how you sort of mentioned, Sophie, that you can kind of capture enough. You know, I need to do 12 of those events and 6 of these packages and couple of these training programs, and I need to go on 5 panels a year, and then that looks pretty good. You know, start to do some numbers about that, and you can plan exactly how many you need to reach. And then you also need to know what your rent is, what your expenses are. You know, are you have variable, one-time or fixed costs? You know, what are they? If you don't have any of those, fine. But as you sort of move into this space, you will need to buy and spend money occasionally. So, so just be aware that that should work. Is it okay to do a huge happy dance when someone pays you to do what you love? Absolutely. I do it every time. I sit in an office on my own a lot of the time. And if someone says, yeah, excellent, we'd like to book you for this date, can you please hold it? You know, send us over the quote and we'll set up a purchase order. There's a big moment of like, they want me. And so it never changes. There's a real sense of, you know, it's external validation, sure, but it is very powerful. And I believe that you should celebrate the wonderful moments, because that is that time of growth where you get, then there's a realization of crap, I've got to do the thing. That's next, but that comes after. Please pat yourself on the back when you get there. I'm going to race through this because I know I've run over time. I didn't think I would today, but obviously I was very energized, as you know. I'm going to quickly go through some of the questions. I do want to give a big plug for our Unpack Your Good course. There is a free toolkit there about environmental communicators if you haven't yet downloaded it. You do know that until the end of today, we have got the doors open for an early bird course that we're running, which is the Unpack Your Good. It helps you become, you know, elevated in the speaking space, get yourself ready to go out if you're wanting to do more and more of this, refine your offer, come up with your speaking topics, look at your pricing, identify your ideal client. It's 4 2-hour live sessions with me and the other participants who are all in the same boat and all navigating this together. There is a huge amount of value, in my opinion. This is all of the stuff that I have learned in 7 years. Not all of it's come easy, I have to say. Some of this has come out of a lot of training that I've done, a lot of failure that I've learned. It's come from experience in podcasting, television presenting, live TV, pre-recorded TV, webinars, online, in person, all of that information. I've kind of curated into knowing, all right, how do you do this if this is something that you want to add to your business? So even if your business services or your organization is not speaking is a really powerful component to amplify the impact. So have a look. We'll send out some more information. There is a link for if you're feeling like, yes, this is me, I'm really ready to do this. There is a 10% discount still there until the end of today. And it will tell me if that's right. If you're sitting there going, oh, I just don't know, Jo, that doesn't feel like me, I'm not sure, or I've got a few questions and I want to make sure it's the right thing, because I don't want anyone to jump in there if it's not right for you. If you're feeling like you're a bit uncertain and not sure, but you're kind of almost there and you want to have a chat and ask some questions, then please book in some time and we can have a chat before the course gets started in another week or so. So to do that quickly, because we will be closing the doors next week. I'm going to try and answer some of the questions. So if you've got anything else you want to ask, this is your moment. So we had so great plug from Michelle about uncharitable. How do you put a price on sustainability? We talked about that, Marty. Yeah, you're right. There's more and more talk about that. The value, it comes down to value, doesn't it? So sometimes it's about interpreting what value is for people, whether that's, hey, you're going to save some money on, being more efficient. Opinion on contra deals, e.g., as a not-for-profit, we can't pay you in cash, but we can promote your business through our networks. I know, I love that one. It's always funny, isn't it? And you're like, yeah, but does that look, it can be good. I would always say, I would always get a really clear idea. If that's the idea, it's like, okay, so what is the size of your networks? How many people do you expect to reach? And look, for a lot of people, promotion is fine, but their audience may not be your audience. And I think it's really important to know that if they're going to promote you, who are they promoting you to? People say that, oh, yes, we'll promote I'm like, but you can promote me to who you want, but they're not my audience. So what's the point? Like, I don't want you to stick my face and my organization in front of, a whole bunch of people who are never going to be interested. I'm in a very specific niche. And unless you are also that niche, then I don't see that there's a lot of, so it's fine. But I think as long as you're aware that it may not be this great deal that they think it is, and also explain that and say, look, I think that's great, but that's really not a huge benefit for me. This would actually be more beneficial. It might mean that you can ask them to come back and do a free talk as well. So I do that quite a bit. If someone says, oh, hey, can you come on this session? I said, yep, but only if you do. And so we do the opposite, and that's a great way of an exchange. It's really fair and equitable then. So I would be very aware that people think that promoting you is payment. It's not always, let's be honest. Promotion is very easy and cheap to get because you've got your own platforms these days. So, and we've got another question from Marty: becoming a for-purpose, for-good environmental social enterprise. Amazing. You still have control as an effective small business, but you do it for the benefit. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with asking for payment just because you do good things. They're not separate. They can be absolutely linked. If there's any more questions, I'll answer them now. I'm hoping I've given you some confidence to think about payment maybe in a different way, or to just validate what you already thought. It is okay to be uncomfortable in this space. A lot of women particularly are uncomfortable talking about money, asking for money, telling people how much their service is worth. But just know that the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. It's just another thing we need to practice and get good at. It's like speaking. The more you do it, the better you get. So just be comfortable in the discomfort. And oh, thanks, Gabby. That's lovely to hear. It's great to know you're here. I didn't know you were here. So I want to thank you all. I know I've run over, and I appreciate that. That's Joe's fault for being so energized. It's Nate Burns' fault for exciting me with his energy last night. He was wearing a pink sequin shirt, can I just say? Anyway, if you haven't caught the last session, please watch that. I'm absolutely excited. We will be bringing more and more sessions coming in the future. I hope I can see some of you on the Unpack Your Good course, if not this time, in the future. But yes, it would be wonderful to help some of you. I know that we've got some amazing sustainability communicators in our midst who are on the pathway to do amazing things. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Anna, and Eva, and Joe, and Marty, Milka, Shelley, Michelle, Joe, another Anna, Beck. Appreciate your time. All women today. I love it. We will see you again soon. This will be recorded. Please, if you know someone that this is relevant to, I'd love you to share this. And make sure you go on and follow everyone else's Instagram and social pages, subscribe to their newsletters, give them a bit of a follow and a comment. We know how hard it is to be seen and to be validated. So please make sure you do that for each other. And I'll be jumping on to your pages shortly and doing the same. Wonderful to see you all. And I look forward to seeing, oh, she's done it, Michelle. Yay. I love that. She's already on there. Quick jump on Michelle Brownstein _nutrition. That's a woman who knows how to just make things happen. I love it. Wonderful. And thank you, Spec, for the LinkedIn message. It's been my absolute pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again, and go out and work out what you're worth. See you all soon. Yes, Michelle. I will see you then. Great. Look forward to it.